I would like to apologize with my English. My Speedy Gonzalez English. I hope I make myself understand. As Carol said, I've been captive breeding tarantulas for 20 years because I think it's the only way that we can save tarantulas of Mexico. Now I will explain you why. We have been in a very rough times and a good time, but most of them are rough times because tarantula are really disappearing from the wild. And we found that the only way to save them is by breeding them in captivity. So why did we start and why do we still try? Is there any hope? Well, first of all, there's a lot of bad information. There was about 20 years ago, start to making a lot of stupid movies based on the ignorance of people, made of big tarantulas eating people, and that stay on everybody's head. So that's the main problem we had because tarantulas weren't as popular as these movies came out. So that was very bad. So there's a lot of bad information about tarantulas. They're very big and they are very poisonous and they can kill your dog or your birds or whatever. That's very, I mean, very stupid. But people buy it, and the problem is that tarantulas are dying because of that. They have real natural enemies, like a lot of enemies. Everyone in the wild eats tarantulas because they are like the shrimps. I mean, they have a lot of protein and they are very small for this kind of enemies. And so that's why they have a lot of babies in the wild. But humans have been making this earth not worth living for the tarantulas with these pesticides and introducing new enemies in the wild. And that's the big problem for tarantulas. And talking to, and we have to talk to about the size of the cities, making their way through the jungles. But the worst enemy is the intolerance that comes from ignorance. That's why part of the program of Tarantulas of Mexico, it's giving talks, a little bit naive. It's not so naive. I will explain that later. And the illegal extraction from the wild. That's a very, very hard thing. The first problem that has tarantulas are the biological cycle. It's very, very slow, very, very slow. And for an arthropod, it's a very slow biological cycle. Males will reach maturity from 3 to 8 years. It depends on the species, but most of them are in that between 3 to 8 years to reach maturity. After that maturity, they will have their sexual organs and they will live about 1 more year and they will die. And so they have the last year, they really have to find a female. So it's very hard for them to find females in the wild because they are blind and they only present that smelling systems. Females reach maturity from 6 to 10 years, depending on the species. I mean, 10 years is a lot of time. 10 years, they have to survive for all those enemies and then be mature for sexual. And then they have to find them. I mean, the male have to find them. So it's very hard. They might live in the wild for 25 years. I'm talking about the Brachypelma species, the Brachypelma genera, because this is the main talk here, the main point, because this species is the most attractive species here in Mexico, and I think in the whole world. So I'm going to explain that later why. That means that they have only 10 years for breeding, because you can abstract 20 years and 10 years of depending on the species, but the sexual maturity, they have 10 years for breeding only. And in that time, they have to molt, because as another arthropod, they have to mold their skin to grow. So then they might molt every 2 years. So that gives us 5 fertile years. In a perfect situation, they will have 5 exacts in all of their life. In 25 years, they will only have 5 exacts. Those exacts might have about 60 to 120, I mean, 1,200 babies. Like you see this Brachypelma meaty putting their eggs there. They might have a lot of eggs, and they might have a small amount of eggs. It depends much in the food situation in that moment in the year, and there might be only the 10% will live to their maturity. So in conclusion, a female might have a perfect condition with males every time, only some 300 adults tarantula in all of their life. And maybe those 300 might be half males, which will not have babies. And so it's very hard for them to live with humans in this planet. I'll explain that why. They grow very, very slow. This photograph shows us just this with the coin in beside. Those are just born 3 months later, and 1 year, 2 years later, they're still very, very small. 3 years later, 4 years, and 5 years. So as you can see, they grow very, very, very slow. They don't have to. They don't need to hurry up. So that's a problem. Well, here in Mexico, they live everywhere. We have tarantulas everywhere in Mexico. We have in desert. We have in the deciduous forest, lowland jungle, highland jungle, but not in where there's permanent ice, there's no tarantulas. That's the only place in Mexico we don't have tarantulas, but everywhere we have tarantulas. We have terrestrial tarantulas. We have tarantulas that make their burrows up in the walls or in the floor. We have arboricoil tarantulas. There's a lot of tarantulas here in Mexico that are not from the genera of Brachypelma. They're very, very nice, very beautiful, and they are in the market. Like this one, Aphonopelma bicoloratum, that is a very rare tarantula to find in the pet trade, because they really grow very, very slow. Nobody knows how many years they grow, they live. There's a lot of beautiful tarantulas in Mexico that are not in the pet trade because they are very, very rare. And this is a very small tarantula that only lives around here in my place in Guadalajara. It's a Tarantula enana. This is a tarantula that has no eyes, lives in the caves. Every cave has a different species of tarantula in the caves. But what are the Brachypelma? Are very special and wanted in the hobby. Brachypelma species are the most beautiful tarantulas in the whole world. They might live more than 30 years in captivity. They are the most docile. If you want to take a tarantula in your hand, you cannot take an African tarantula or an Asian tarantula in your hand because she's going to bite you. And the Brachypelma tarantulas, they will never bite. I mean, this is very, very hard to bite. So they're very attractive for that. And they don't need much food in maintenance. I mean, you can feed them once a month. It's not nice, but you can feed them once a month and nothing happens to them. Well, most of the tarantulas that are in the pet trade are in the Pacific. So most of the poachers come to the Pacific to look for them. And poach them, whatever, I don't know how to say it, but they take it from the wild and they take it to the United States or to Germany or everywhere the tarantulas are needed. The situation of the illegal traffic, it's very, very bad here in Mexico. You can imagine, because you cannot say exactly numbers, but you can imagine there's hundreds of tarantulas coming out from Mexico, because you can find it everywhere in Europe and in Asia. Mexican tarantulas, they go like this in small box. Most of them die because they get killed there, and it's still a very good business. As they don't appear in X-rays in the airports, you can trade them in suitcase, and nobody will notice that. So that's the main problem there. They are protected. Don't take it. They are protected here in Mexico by the law in Mexico. and by CITES, they are in Appendix 2. So they are laws here in Mexico. They are not like unprotected, but as of all the things that I've been telling you, it's hard for them. So I think the only way to save tarantulas is by breeding them in captivity and make a real competition with the poachers. There are two kinds of breeders, the commercial ones and the conservation ones. The commercial breeders, they make a lot of profit with them, but they don't only sell to the final customer. So the real good impact in the wild is very, very low. They don't have a very good impact because very small amount of tarantulas are there. So there's no real competition with the poachers. And the conservation breeders, like myself, the good thing is that you can sell big quantities, so a great impact is in the wild because there is a demand of tarantulas out there, and you can supply them by captive breed tarantulas. Very low prices, we sell them in very low prices, so it's a real headache to the poachers. The poachers come to sell to the tarantulas to the same place they used to, and they found out that I sell them very cheap tarantulas at the same price of them, but they have papers, yeah? Bad things, it's a lot of work, no profit at all. We are always in red numbers. It costs about 25 tarantulas to maintain $25 to maintain a tarantula until it's 4 years old. And in USA, they will pay no more than $6 for the same tarantula. So you can see we are in red numbers. I knew that from the start. I knew we'd be in red numbers. So, but that's the only way. That's the only way to make the poachers to go and make, I don't know, chairs or whatever, to do another thing. So, yeah. So the only way to save tarantulas from extinction in the wild is captive breeding and fill the market with cheap and legal tarantulas. I think that's the only way to do this. The most popular tarantulas in the world is the Brachypelma smithi. This is the one. This is very, very hard, sadly, to find in the wild. And since they have been disappearing from the wild, these are the substitutes, Brachypelma auratum, the red-kneed tarantula, and they're selling like Brachypelma smithi, flame-knees, I'm sorry, and Brachypelma emilia. These both are now in the eyes of the poachers to substitute the disappearing Brachypelma smithi. That's very sad. So that's why we reproduce the next species. These ones, I won't tell you the scientific names because we don't have time, but I show you the pictures. These ones that we are reproducing right now in these facilities. And we have production approximately about 6,000 babies a year. That's nothing what the market needs. I need more than 12,000 tarantulas a year to fulfill USA and Canada and some of the Europe market, and it's still very, very low quantity. Over 2011 and 2020, we have been selling about 12,500 specimens. And we are a kind of a place where we receive all the animals that the law take from the poachers, and we receive them and we take care of them until they die from mold. And we receive.
Rodrigo.
Okay. This is the tarantulas we've been receiving. Our activities, we go in the wild to make see the numbers of tarantula there in the wild. We attend the fires to take the tarantulas out of the fires. We make this kind of a group of people, and we give a lot of talks. We give talks to all Mexico, to little towns, wherever there are tarantulas, so they stop being afraid of tarantulas. We make expositions of tarantulas, telling them what the tarantulas are good for, and we give talks everywhere. Everywhere I make this web page, tarantulasofmexico.com. If you wanna ever go there, these are installations that I provide. So again, the only way to save the Mexican tarantulas is captive breeding and fill the demand of the world with them. We really need help. Okay, Carol, that was very fast.